everybody, it's Leeroy from Leeroy Gaming, and in today's Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader video, we're going to be looking at upgrading your Void ship. So this is going to be a complete guide to upgrading your warship. Now do note, it's going to be everything except an in-combat tutorial. If you'd like to see me do a video on in-combat tutorial for the Void ship space combat, make sure to sound off in the comments below. If I find enough interest in it, I'll make sure to prioritize a video for that as well. Now we're going to be talking about how to upgrade your Void ship with components, the different upgrade skills. We're going to be talking about posts and your companions and the interesting impact that they have on the ships that aren't always so clear. And then we're going to be talking about the reputation system, vendors, as well as talking about some very important projects, colony projects that you are going to want to take advantage of, including one that is a true game changer for space combat. You're not going to want to miss this project. If you do, it's just going to make space combat quite a bit more difficult. So make sure to check that out. Now, I will be having timestamps below so you can jump around where you want to go. With that being said, remember, if you find this video helpful, drop a like, subscribe for more RPG content, including Rogue Trader. And if you want to help me out with the algorithm, make sure to drop the comments. Any kind of questions or feedback I will be looking for to answer. Now, without further ado, let's go and take a look at how you can optimize your ship, your Void ship, in Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. All right, we'll go ahead and start by looking at just the main component sections that you're going to be upgrading. So there's going to be 4 passive locations that you're going to upgrade on your ship, and then 5 active weapons. And there's going to be a variety of options as you play the game based off of just quest rewards. You're going to be able to get a lot of them from the reputation vendor that we'll take a look at, and also from some of the colony projects, which we will also look at. Now, there's also 2 passive areas where you're going to be able to upgrade your hull and your RAM. Now, your hull and RAM are a little different than the other upgrades because you're going to need scraps to level them up. You're also going to need scraps to repair your ship after combat. Now, I actually want to jump to posts next because by looking at this, it's going to make the upgrade system make a little bit more sense. So there's a couple of very important things to know with the post system. First of all, every one of the posts has a skill associated with it. You'll notice the Supreme Commander has Persuasion, Master Cannoneer has Demolition, Shield Master has Tech Use, Master of Maneuverability is Athletics. You need Lower Warp for Warp Channeler, and for Master of Etherics, you need Awareness. So right off the bat, you're going to want to make sure you have at least one character they're going to keep around with one of these stats maxed out as high as you can. But there's a secondary element that I didn't even pick up on correctly when I first started playing. So it's not just about the specific skill level, but also there's a whole correlation with the different upgrades and skills that each position has. So for example, Supreme Commander, in my case, I have Swing Run and Focused Efforts that's unlocked that is in this section. While Master Cannoneer, not surprisingly, Torpedo Control and All Hands on Deck special ability. So this is something important to note. Why? Because every single one of your companions has 2 upgrades to some potential upgrade special abilities here. So for example, let's take a look here at Yuriet. I cannot pronounce her name. At this post, 2 of the abilities I've unlocked that are associated with Master of Etherics is Vulnerability Scan and Arc Augury. Now, if you look at this character on her profile and look under her features, let's take a look at her real quick. If you go under talents at the bottom, she specifically has a buff to Vulnerability Scan, as well as one for Torpedo Control. Why is this important? This is important because if you want to get the most out of her, you're going to want to put her in one of the two positions that utilizes. And obviously, you cannot benefit from both of these flagship post ability buffs. It's either one or the other. So going back to what we were looking at here, let's take a look at the posts. For this character, here is vulnerability scan. And with this, so you can get her special ability if you have her in this post, if you have a high awareness. You could also put her as a master cannoneer, because remember, she had a buff to torpedo control. But do note that requires you to make sure she also has a high demolition skill, which may or may not be something that you had put points into. So you kind of want to think in advance here. You're going to want to make sure, okay, am I getting characters that are not only going to have a really good stat associated with this, but if you want to min-max, you're going to want to make sure that their buffs are associated with this as well. So now that's a natural transition to take a look at these upgrades. So as you level up, you're going to have options to upgrade common post abilities initially. At level 1, you're going to be able to get 2 of them. So right off the bat, I didn't choose to pick Warp Wave, but you could have, even at level 1. And as in that example of Idira, she would have given a buff in her spot for that if you unlocked it. As you level up, you're going to have initial common upgrades for the first 2 levels. Then you're going to have the ability to add advanced abilities. Now, my biggest recommendation here is, even though you can respec, you can make your gameplay more efficient by planning ahead a little bit. So look ahead, check out these abilities. I will tell you, strafe and shallow jump, both of these, which I picked up at level 3, are really good for manipulating movement in combat, either laterally left to right or getting an extra jump forward that just gives you more range in your movement can make the difference between effective gameplay and not. And then over here, you're also going to start unlocking some ultimate abilities. So these are very, very powerful. My personal favorite is Imperial Storm. This does a good amount of damage in a giant area, really good for kind of destroying smaller ships or bombarding bigger ships as well. So it's good for all types of attacks. So again, as you level up, you're going to have all these upgrades. So by the end, you're going to be able to have the majority of upgrades. Also, you will get these, they call flagship developments. These are passive abilities. Now, from my personal experience, when you look here, there are a couple that are going to be very specific to certain playstyles. So if you're going to be using ramming a lot and you're going to upgrade your RAM, improve RAM is a must. If you don't, you can totally ignore it. I like silent running so that you can basically start first. You can kind of get the jump on enemies. There's also really effective ways to get more scraps, as well as making repairs more cost effective. This can save you a ton of scraps if you find that you tend to be low on them all the time. So that's kind of the upgrade system. It's pretty straightforward. The biggest thing, again, you got to just remember that each one of these abilities is going to be related to a specific post. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory. Anything related to shield management, go shield mastery, movement, and the master of maneuverability, and so forth and so forth. All right, next I want to talk about the reputation system and the reputation vendors specific to Voidship development. And really the big one is Imperial Navy. Now, this reputation system is unique to all the other because you cannot trade in normal components like armor, weapon, etc. to level this up. There's only 2 ways to level it up. The first is going to be through trophies. So it's either Void Necron, Aldari, Drukhari, Heretic, and Pirate trophies. Long story short, by basically doing space combat, you're going to get these trophies and you can trade them in to get your reputation up. However, that is not the fastest and most impactful way of getting reputation up. You're actually going to get this reputation up through specific colony developments, which we'll talk about in just a second. But before we get that, I do want to point out just how important this vendor is. Again, I've already unlocked up to level 10 here. There's a ton of upgrades that you're going to be able to get. Everything from all the passive slots to the weapons. Technically, just by getting this reputation up, you can get everything you need for the ships. I also want to point out that there are certain periods where you're going to be able to get scrap containers like this. So there was a one earlier on that, again, I don't know if it's been patched or not, but I was able to get thousands of total scraps. Here at level 11, you can get 4 scrap containers. Each of one is worth 4 or 100. So this is 400 scrap containers once you hit 11. And you're going to get, again, lots of other upgrades here. So your whole goal is to get this reputation up. All right, now quick disclaimer when it comes to planets. I want to point out that I've played this game during beta. I played it significantly. And now I've played it in pre-release and release. And in both situations, I missed the Foulstone colony. Long story short, you will have interactions with a planet called Foulstone. And technically, if you make the right choice or the situation isn't bugged like it was in beta for me, you're going to be able to have a 5th planet here. So because of neither of my playthroughs have I gotten this, I don't know if there are any projects related to ship upgrades and buffs from Foulstone. If anybody knows in the comments, please let me know, and I will share that with you on my next playthrough. I will make an upgraded video if I do find anything significant from Foulstone. But outside of that technically optional planet, which you could completely miss by making the wrong choice there, you have these 4 planets, and in particular, 3 are going to give you projects that are significant, one more than the others. So I'm going to start by talking about Dargonis, and I'm going to kind of unlock it so you can see my finished projects. And the ones that you're going to want to look at is, first of all, in Tier 2, you're going to have Shield of the Emperor. You do need to note that this will make it so you can't get Filth or Expanse, but this is a big, big deal. This is early on, and it is the most impactful upgrade of all, because you are not only going to get 5,000 reputation here, not only are you going to get 5% crit chance against pirates and these other effects, but you're going to get an escort ship. Yes, you will have a 2nd ship in combat. It is AI controlled. It's really good at drawing fire, and it's also quite effective in combat. So I highly recommend picking this up. It's going to make your space combat way easier, and in my opinion, way better than what you get from Filth or Expanse. So make sure not to miss this one if you want to optimize your space combat. Now next, in Tier 3, you can get Adipus Arbites. And the main thing here, again, it does block 2 other options, but it gives you 5,000 more Imperial Navy reputation. That's a lot of reputation for your upgrade. So that's the next one. Next, in Tier 4, there's going to be 2 options. Militia Navy is a big deal. It's a great upgrade overall. You get 6,000 reputation from this. And you also get this great ability called Triumph over the Expanse. The flagship restores 33% to the cooldown of the ultimate ability at the end of space combat. Red warp routes always become orange also. And important thing to note, when you use an ultimate ability in combat, you normally cannot use it again for multiple combat / just time passing by moving around. This basically makes it so you get to use your ultimate ability more often. So it's real nice. Then there's Bastion. I haven't gotten this yet because you do need to complete missionaries, and I haven't done that yet. But for this one right here, you get player gains the battle mastery feature. And so this increases your plating for all the sectors. As far as I understand this is basically the damage reduction on all 4 sides of your ship. So this is real nice for defense. And then you have one more all the way in 5. And again, this is mutually exclusive of the other 2 options. But if you choose this, Society of Cartographers, it's going to give you a massive 12,000 reputation with Imperial Navy, as well as some other very good productive options here. Xenotech, Adamantine, and Flagstone are the rarest components in the entire kind of universe here. So for 3 profit negative, it's really, really good and worthwhile getting. Next, we're going to look at Kiavagama and its potential upgrades here. The first one is going to be in rank 3, Armored Rage. And for this, you will actually unlock a pretty darn good weapon if you can get this early on, the Titan Forge Lance. I think I just upgraded it recently for me with a tier or an Act 4 rather. So if you can get this earlier, this is very, very powerful and very, very good. Then you have Orbital Shipyard in tier 4. 5,000 reputation, really good, and 5 profit is nothing to sneeze at. So you cannot really go wrong with that one. You also have another one where you actually have to have really high reputation with Kazbalika mission, one of the reputations. I haven't done that. But if you do get this, you get some really cool stuff here. So you get this Fangs of Janus macro weapon, 6 shots at 22, quite good. And you also get 5% crit hit chance against Xenos enemies. Or, and again, these are going to be mutually exclusive of Dark Experiment, you can get this really amazing shield, as well as 6,000 rep for Imperial Navy. And then in rank 5, you're going to have 2 options to choose from. So Sky Barrier, you're going to get the feature of Exalted Instrument of War. But do note, even though you would think that this would be for your space combat, this is actually for normal combat. But you do get Triumph and Fury. This is the most powerful Mac weapon as far as I know in the game. 5 shots, 30 damage per shot. Absolutely amazing. Very hard to pass up. The alternative to this is the Power of Plasma again. These 3 are mutually exclusive. And you would get Sacrament of Light. And this is a very, very fast engine. It does have average acceleration and braking. So I still think Sky Barrier is better because that weapon is super powerful. And then finally on Vibo 6, you're going to have a couple options. So at rank 3, you have access to Test of Willis. And for this, you get unerring shots. And this gives your torpedoes 15% more damage. So if you're going to be using torpedoes, this is an absolutely great upgrade. At tier 4, you're going to have the option of getting Navy Whips. Once you get your reputation high enough, this will mainly give you even more reputation, 6,000 reputation, and a weapon and some decent buffs. And you can also get Penal Battalion. Lord Captain's Voidship gains Diligent Cannoneer feature, plus 10% to critical hit chance of macro cannons. Very, very powerful. So those are all the possible upgrades to the colonies that I have found. So in this final section, I want to give you some examples of some of the key components I have gotten and my recommendations. When it comes to engines, I do prioritize acceleration and braking so that you can basically have better maneuverability. So although you will find other options that maybe have higher speed, this one, for example, low acceleration braking for 1 more speed, definitely not worth it for me. I would recommend get the highest speed with strong acceleration and braking. Shields will either let you have overall or specialization. So until you can get these kind of rare yellow components, you're going to have to probably choose. This one, for example, is 120 for all sectors. Here you have 95 points for the main sectors and doubled against blast attacks. So you're going to find different options like this. I normally, because you can't fully predict what you're going to be fighting against, unless you want to be swapping between each combats, which you could, I normally just like to pick whichever has the highest score for overall and keep it simple. Now, Auspex is all about hitting and critting. And this can be a little confusing. There are some specialty items you can get that will have other effects, like here lowering the evasion. But I have found through experimentation, I don't like sacrificing my to hit too much. So there are some options that will have lower percentages of to hit, but maybe slightly higher to crit. For me, my recommendation, obviously, once you can get a 90% hit and high crit, awesome. But until then, I actually recommend you don't want to miss. Missing is the worst thing in this game on the space combat. So I would prioritize 2 hit and then the crit chance as a secondary. Now, armor in a similar vein, you're gonna either have specialized defense in specific situations, or kind of more all-around defense, because it is a little tricky to try and maneuver your void ship to be able to force the enemy to hit a certain side. I normally tend to err for getting the best possible overall defense for your ship. Now, upgrading your hull whenever you have enough points is always a great option. Whether you upgrade your RAM or not is optional. I found that I don't really use the RAM attack that often. It is still kind of buggy, as I have mentioned before. So as an extra tip here, if you're not planning on using the ramming ability, you can actually completely ignore this, because this buff only has to do with lowering the damage you take when you ram other ships, nothing else. With that being said, if they make the system less buggy in future releases where they don't somehow randomly miss, it could be very viable to build a ramming setup. Now, when it comes to weapons, I will say the biggest decision you're probably going to make is whether you're going to use torpedoes or not. And this may also impact what upgrades, colony upgrades you take as well. Now, torpedoes are literally, you can imagine them, you're going to fire them and you control them on their own turn, kind of like little ships, and you literally run them into other enemies. The big difference is you're going to be picking between this and having a secondary cannon that fires. So that's the biggest thing you're going to need to decide on. So as you can see here, I have a variety of different torpedoes I had unlocked, but you may also be able to get very powerful secondary lance weapons like this Titan Forged lance weapon that I had showed to you guys earlier. So depending on whether you want one long range blast or these torpedoes that are a little bit more maneuverable, that is going to dictate your playstyle here. The other big decision, because the dorsal gun, I haven't found that many options to them, so you can very easily just pick whichever option is the most powerful. Your big choice here, though, on your ports is choosing between long range or short range broadside guns. So these are the guns that shoot from the sides. So generally speaking, you'll notice in combat there is a decent amount of difference in the range. With that being said, I have not found that the difference between short and long range is significant enough to where I wouldn't pick whichever has the most amount of shots with the most amount of damage. So as you level up, I just recommend upgrading to the best total damage. Don't worry about as much the short range with long range. It's a couple spaces, but in most cases, when you're already turning sideways towards enemies, you're able to get close enough. And so that's my recommendation here. All right, guys. And with that being said, that's everything you need to know when it comes to upgrading your void ship. Again, if you found this video helpful, make sure to drop a like. If you have any other questions about developing your void ship, please let me know in the comments below. And again, if you want to see a combat tutorial video, let me know in the comments and I'll keep an eye on that. If there's enough interest, I will try and make something useful and helpful. The basics are pretty straightforward, but there are some advanced strategies you can definitely utilize, so I'll consider making that. Thank you for all the support, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe as always, and I will see you guys in the next video.